Well, now we have sound. I can't believe that. I feel so bad for you guys sometimes letting me just talk on, seeing my mouth move without being able to hear me. I had my mic. Oh my gosh. Okay, let's see if we can avoid that nightmare today at all and not be constantly muting myself. All right, back to the beginning. Good morning, peasants. Welcome to another episode of The Peasant's Perspective. Could you let me know and make sure I've unmuted, make sure I'm all good there? Pretty sure I am, but just got to double check. Can you hear me okay? Mata Easel, Carlites, anybody? Make sure I'm all here. I'm unmuted on my mic. I'm unmuted here. We should be good. Okay, good morning, peasants. Welcome to another episode of The Peasant's Perspective. So I'm still on the road, still in Idaho. As you can see, got the hotel room behind me, got kids all over the place. And I got to warn you, today could be a long show. It's a long show because it's the last day of the month. And with all the transitions and moving we did with the studio and everything, we're a little bit short on our stream time. So I'm probably going to stream a long one today. And then I might even jump in and stream another one tomorrow. I'm also going to do a lot of private streaming today because I got to catch up on some of that time before the end of the month. Also, I need one more chatter. I need one more new chatter. So those of you that are here early, you guys have probably been here all month long. Please, if encourage new people to chat. Just from time to time, post that in the chat. Any new people, say hi. I need one more chatter to complete my requirements for the month. So, okay. Before we jump too far into kind of what's been going on all over with regards to this DC shooter, this Afghanistan immigrant, I wanted to share with you guys something that I thought was pretty freaking funny. So what this is an article coming out of the U.S. Sun, and it says this: bird-brained scheme. Putin scientists launch chilling squadron of remote-controlled spy pigeons fitted with brain implants. So I thought this was absolutely crazy. Let's see. We've got a little
electronics, GPS
sound
trackers,
here. So
and
let's
receivers.
listen to this.
Putin scientists have launched a squadron of remote-controlled spy pigeons fitted with brain implants. A Kremlin-backed Moscow neurotechnology firm claims its operators can steer entire flocks by zapping signals directly into their brains. Russia's so-called bird biodrones, codenamed PJN-1, are ordinary pigeons surgically implanted with neural chips that let technicians direct their routes. Field tests are underway using birds with electrodes inserted into their brains and tiny solar-powered backpacks carrying electronics, GPS trackers, and receivers. Russian tech firm Neri chillingly insists no training is required, saying birds can be steered in any direction once the device is implanted. The company claims pigeons can fly 310 miles a day, more than 1,850 miles a week, and says bigger birds like seagulls, albatrosses, and even ravens could soon be used for heavier payloads. Founder Alexandra Panov says, "Right now the solution works on pigeons, but any bird can be used as the carrier." Sources inside Neri say the pigeons can already be steered in real time as operators upload commands straight into their brains. The firm boasts the birds simply believe it wants to fly, in whatever direction the handler chooses, with electrodes inserted within millimeters of key brain regions. Neri claims the pigeon biodrone differs from an ordinary bird only by the neuro interface wire protruding from its head and the small backpack containing electronics.
Isn't that crazy? They literally have birds that have brain implants that then they can steer it. So the inside joke here is my daughter. She's moved out of the house now, but she had these T-shirts when she was a kid that said "Birds aren't real." Every now and then I got to look down and make sure I'm not muted. It said "Birds aren't real," and it was like this joke that birds are like a spy thing. And so when I saw this article, I had to send it to her, and she replied back last night, "I knew all along, Dad." So Russia's figured out how to implant into the brain of pigeons and basically steer them all over the place, which is really amazing. But at the same time, we peasants are quickly getting outpaced as far as the capacity to have parity in the way we, operate with each other. They talk about God made men equal and Colt enforced the equality, right? The Colt revolver. And it's the equalizer, right? Well, when you see stuff like this, I'm like, well, I might have a gun, but you guys got pigeons, they got dolphins they were talking about, they got all kinds of stuff going on. Over into the chats, good morning, Carlitz already said hello. Mata Easel, no sound on mute, thank you. Tiff Time, happy born day, yes, thank you. It is my birthday, in fact. Madam M, happy birthday, sweetheart, love you, honey. And Pony Boy, good morning, glad to have you guys here. It's been an interesting trip. This is actually, I think, only my second. To think about this, I think this is my second real trip since I've been back from prison. Second vacation-y trip, I guess. Everything else I've gone on has been kind of work related. Anyways, so another thing that I wanted to share with you guys today is in the aftermath of this shooting in DC, which, by the way, the young National Guardswoman, she did pass away. Very tragic. They had a procession leaving the hospital yesterday. It was all over. So this Afghanistan shooter is, I mean, at this point, Pam Bondi said it. He's going to be charged with murder. They're going to seek the death penalty, which is appropriate for a man who drove all the way across the country to shoot some people on the street in the head. Both of the Guards members had just literally swore in 24 hours earlier. So it's just absolutely tragic. Mike Johnson was at the podium, and he was asked about this, and he said something that a lot of us have been saying. Scott Adams has emphasized this. It's this idea that we're watching.
There's a split.
Oops, excuse me. We're watching two movies on two screens. We have two Americas happening right now, and I can identify and reach through this analogy that he's going to share and say we have two screens in a lot of ways. We have the right and left screen, right? Trump is a dictator. Trump is a hero. You have the top bottom screen, or the age gap screen, where boomers are hearkening for a day gone by, and millennials feel like opportunity and everything in life has totally passed them by. It's very, very difficult, to reconcile these two different screens. And the more we have that, the more obviously it becomes just a nonstop problem for people all over the place in life. So before we listen to Mike Johnson talk about this here, I want to remind you guys that we always have Rumble Premium, and we would love for you guys to subscribe to Rumble Premium, as well as just the Rumble app in general. So if you're listening over on YouTube, or it looks like we have a whole bunch of listeners over on X right now, if you haven't already, make sure you download the Rumble app. It's free, simple to use, and the best way to stay connected to the content you want, like this show, The Peasant's Perspective. Don't forget to hit subscribe. Once you got it, search for my channel and hit follow. That way you can get a notification every time we go live, even when it's like randomly at different times. Like I'm probably going to end up doing a little extra streaming this weekend. No missed shows, no extra steps. You can grab it right now using the link in the description or the pinned live chat, download it to your phone, and you're ready to go. And if you prefer watching on the big screen, Rumble is available on all major streaming devices and smart TVs. Just search for Rumble, follow the channel, and be part of the action. And if you're watching me right now on a big screen, I'm impressed. Okay, so let's jump in here and listen to Mike Johnson talk about two movies on two screens.
There's a split screen in America right now. There's a split screen. On one side of the screen, you have President Trump and the Republican majorities in the Congress and the Senate and the House doing the work for the American people. Look what we've achieved in the first 10 months of this year. You can make an argument that it's the most productive season for a new Congress and a new presidency, a new administration, at least in the modern era, maybe of all time. Just in this short amount of months, we got the border secured. We fulfilled that promise. We are working on the crime crisis around the country. We have new trade agreements. We have a return to American energy dominance. We have cut taxes, the largest tax cut in U.S. history in a literal sense. We're cutting regulations. We're ending fraud, waste, and abuse out of government. We're shoring up the safety net programs like Medicaid so that it's there for the people that desperately need it, and it is not being abused by illegal aliens and by young able-bodied men who are not eligible to receive that. We are doing all this good work. The president, meanwhile, is using his authority to change the world, literally. He has ended 8 wars around the globe. All of this is happening on the Republican side and so much more. That's on one side of the screen, and on the other is the Democrat Party. And what have they done? What do they have to show for the last 10 months of government here? They shut the government down. They voted 15 times to close the government and exact that pain on everyone. We can never forget that. They haven't achieved anything beyond that except pushing ICE officers around and really spurring on political violence. So I want to say that there's a reason the Democrats are in disarray right now. There's a reason they don't have an identified leader of their party. There's a reason that their favorability, even amongst those in their own party, is at lowest of all time. They don't have a platform, a principle they can defend. They don't have a leader, except for Mondami, who's the new mayor of New York City and leading the party into Marxism and socialism. I think everybody should consider that split screen. I think you should look at it truthfully and honestly and objectively. And I think you can evaluate for yourself which party's working for the people. We're anxious to get that done, to work on healthcare and affordability and all the issues, to continue doing what we've done. And we look forward to rolling that out for you in the next several days.
So the Republican Party has clearly kind of been doing what they're doing, right? Passing the big, beautiful bill. You know, sometimes when we get out into the weeds with these guys like Mike Johnson, you know, what have you really done? I mean, are you passing all the bills we need? There's so many other things they could be doing. It is what it is, right? But the reality is Trump has moved at lightning speed on all different fronts. He's been pushing the envelope in a bunch of different directions. And for anybody who kind of understands how the world works, you know, you got to sow your seeds, you got to weed, water, repeat that process until you finally get the harvest. So Trump is out there creating a new environment, a different situation so that he can reconcile some of these two screen problems. And the biggest reconciliation is the boomer, millennial, and below generational problem. But on top of that, right, he's fixing the globalist populist thing. He's trying to bring everything into alignment. But you've got people who are just pure, plain and simple obstructionists. And some of them seem to be obstructionists for like no good reason. And an example of that is Don Lemon here. So Don Lemon, I don't even know, this is the Left Hook podcast. It's actually not a bad name. It's the Left Hook podcast. And he's giving this advice. And this was just, you know, days before this recent DC shooter, which it almost doesn't even matter. When you say stuff like this, there's always going to be a shooting a couple days down the road or, you know, that kind of thing. But here he is giving what I consider not very good advice. And it's very, I don't know, insurrection-y. Again, two screens.
Black people, brown people of all stripes, whether you're an Indian American or a Mexican American or whoever you are, go out in your place where you live and get a gun legally, get a license to carry legally. Because when you have people knocking on your door and taking you away without due process as a citizen, isn't that what the Second Amendment was written for? Black people, brown people of all stripes, whether you're an Indian American or a Mexican American or whoever you are, go out in your place where you live and get a gun legally.
Can you believe that? Black people, brown people, go out, get a gun. And then, of course, you know, he's smart enough because he's been a broadcaster to say legally and defend yourself from who? Federal agents. He's encouraging people to go out and defend themselves from federal agents. Now, put that in the context of the shooting that just happened in DC. Is that not basically exactly what they just said? Now, again, in the two screens mentality, right, you've got a lot of people in the media, a lot of people on the left. They want to blame the victims, right, in a situation like this. They want to blame the victims. This is where you have to like step back for a moment and go, okay, like if all things are being equal and two people get in a fight, the guy who throws the first punch is ultimately guilty, okay? The problem is it's whoever throws the first punch. It's not who started the argument, who ran their mouth. As long as it's mouth running, it's just go, 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 go. But the moment someone takes that first punch, then all, you know, the gloves are off. So in a situation like this, here's this Afghan person comes to our country, right, using our virtue to take advantage of free housing. And we're going to talk about some of the benefits that he received before he went on this rampage. And then they turn around and you have people who want to blame the National Guard for trying to suppress crime as the impetus that would lead someone to come in with a gun and do the shooting. Now, I completely understand this line of thinking because I went to the United States Capitol once thinking that I could go make a difference, and I made a little speech in my bullhorn, and guess what? It didn't matter that I was right. It didn't matter that the election was stolen. It didn't matter that they were doing any of that stuff. At some point, the government deemed me to have crossed a red line, and they brought charges. Now, we all know the story. I don't agree with it. Argue. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. I cognized and recognized the fact I'm the one who took an affirmative action. So when this guy goes and takes an affirmative action like that, whatever happened to the good old phrase, sticks and stones can break my bones, but words can never hurt me. If you're here legally, what do you have to fear? If you're here illegally, that's where we have the problem. You're here illegally, which was your first crime. And then there's usually a lot of crimes that follow that. Well, what's going on here? So then here's Jeanine Pirro, current DC United States attorney, who previously was a Fox show news host, and before that was a judge, and before that was a prosecutor. She was asked a similar question here. Can't you blame Trump for bringing the troops on the streets?
That with the president believing that the National Guard members should not even have been there if it were not for the executive order.
I don't even want to talk about whether they should have been there. We ought to kiss the ground and thank God that the president said it's time to bring in more law enforcement to make sure that a city that had the fourth highest homicide rate in the country was that violence was quelled. I'm not even going to go there.
A question for Director.
So there had been on like if you take this week last year, there was something like, or excuse me, if you take the same period of time since Trump deployed the troops to DC as last year, right? So I don't know, when did he deploy? March, April, May, June? I don't even know. Whenever he deployed them to now, if you take that number of shootings in DC a year ago, it was in the 60s. Now they did have this, still had shootings, but it was in the 20s. That's a massive reduction, right? In percentage. That's 40 more families that had someone at their Thanksgiving table yesterday because the troops and the federal officers came into DC to clean things up. I'm sure you could say the same kind of statistics in cities like Memphis, where they've deployed, in cities like LA. Well, they deployed in LA. I don't know if they're still there. Anyways, where they've deployed, it's clearly making a big difference. And I'm really glad that Judge Jeanine there, or Attorney General, what do we call her? AUSA Attorney General Jeanine Pirro. I'm really glad she cognizes that. We should be thanking Trump for basically adding law enforcement, because there was a scourge of violence. I remember every day as I would wake up in the DC gulag. Okay. My cell was cell number 37. I was on the top tier of the block. And when I could look out my little 4-inch window through the door, I could see there was a pillar right here that blocked the clock. So I couldn't see the clock. So I never knew what time it was when I was in my cell, unless I had a tablet or they said what time it was on the radio. But I could look through my cell window and I could see the TV, right? Like I actually had a straight on view of the TV rooms, like big TV that was like mounted up on a little walkway thing. It was really awkward, but either way, I had a decent view from my room. So on football game nights, after we would get locked in, I would go stand at my door like a little loser, looking through the four inches of glass, and I'd watch the end of some football game, the fourth quarter after we'd be locked in, or I watched March Madness from in there, watched some basketball. I watched, that's where I first started watching Caitlin Clark in Iowa play. So looking through my window. Anyways, I would wake up every morning, and before we would get let out, right, breakfast would come, and the guards would leave the TV on all night. No one ever turned the TV off, right? The TV's just on all night. And usually at some point in the night, the guard would turn it on to Scripps News or some news channel. And so very, very normally when we would wake up in the morning, the local news was on. Every morning it felt like. Every morning. It was like, breaking, another drive-by shooting. Breaking, 4 injured last night and taken to the hospital. Breaking. It was like, it got to be like this joke. Because remember, we're all from the hinterlands. Like none of us were from DC. So we're all from out and about in the country. A lot of us live, in quiet, unassuming neighborhoods and stuff like that. And so, we're not accustomed to hearing about drive-by shootings every day. It was stunning. It was like, how could you live in a town like this where every day, it's not that big of a town. I mean, DC's a big town, but not that big. It's 10 square miles. How could you live in a town that has that much rampant crime going on? So it's really good that Trump sent the troops. Clearly it was needed to be done, and it's had great effect on crime reduction. But two screens. One side of this country thinks that this is the insurrection, that Trump sending troops into the streets is some Hitler-like action, something that just should never be repeated, or is being repeated from times past. Trump gave this this press conference yesterday, and during this press conference, this is when he announced that this poor young servicewoman had passed away. The other gentleman is fighting for his life right now. I pray that he makes it. And Trump was being asked about this particular Afghan migrant. So we're going to dive into some parts a little detailed. Some parts we're going to just kind of gloss over here. But essentially what you've got here is you've got this Afghan migrant that was taken out of Afghanistan during the Afghanistan airlift. And somehow, as he made it here, he got his temporary asylum. At some point during the Trump administration, they granted him some kind of temporary reprieve, and then they didn't, there's some kind of overlap here. And Trump's being asked, well, why do you blame Biden for bringing him in when he came in under your watch? And that's just not true. So this is Trump's exchange. And I think that these two screens that we're seeing in America, you're getting to the point where the one side of the screen, the side that's been very passive, who has a virtue that's been weaponized by the good guy. Oh, you want to be generous and kind and whatever. Let's take in all these migrants. Don't vet them, give them money because you're kind, right? This is what kind people do. That's called weaponizing your virtue. Right? They've taken a good quality about you and they've essentially turned around and used it against you. So the American people, legacy Americans, however you want to consider it, have been more than generous by having very liberal immigration policies, by having very liberal social safety net policies, all that kind of stuff. But that's coming to an end. It's coming to an end. It went too far. And what happens is when you push a kind person or someone that's overly forgiving to their very limit, that's a lot of times when you see the snap, right? In our real lives, we look around and we meet people and you're like, everything was fine. And then one day he just snapped. Well, this is what snapping looks like.
U.S. officials say that the suspect worked very closely with the CIA in Afghanistan for years, that he was vetted and the vetting came up clean.
He went cuckoo. I mean, he went nuts. And that happens too. It happens too often with these people. You see them. But look, this is how they come in. This is how they're standing on top of each other, and that's an airplane. There was no vetting or anything. They came in unvetted. And we have a lot of others in this country. We're going to get them out. But they go cuckoo. Something happens to them.
Your DOJ IG just reported this year that there was thorough vetting by DHS and by the FBI of these Afghans who were brought into the U.S.
Okay, so they said that there's an internal investigation report that said, there was vetting. Stop for just a moment here, okay? The Biden administration was corrupt from top to bottom. Every element of that government apparatus in its leadership roles had, I don't even know what other word to use than corrupt. Okay. So you have IGs that are covering up for their departments. And that was one of the very first changes that Trump instituted. You need to separate the investigator generals from the departments that they're supposed to investigate because they get too close. Literally, you cannot have the guy that's investigating you also meeting you for brunch. It's not okay. You can't have offices next to each other. So here you've got Alejandro Mayorkas, who's opened the border, let people in, and he turns around to his AG and he's like, hey, do me a favor and tell people we vetted them. It's ridiculous.
So why do you blame the Biden administration?
Because they let them in. Are you stupid? Are you a stupid person? Because they came on a plane along with thousands of other people that shouldn't be here. And you're just asking questions because you're a stupid person. And there's a law passed that it's almost impossible not to get them out. You can't get them out once they come in. And they came in and they were unvetted. They were unchecked. There were many of them. And they came in on big planes and it was disgraceful. And if you look, you'll see there was a law passed. It makes it almost impossible not to let them in, not to certify them, so to speak, once they come in. And they came in. And they shouldn't have come in. And frankly, the whole thing was a mess. The whole Afghanistan situation was a mess. It should have never taken place. If we're going to go out, and we would have gone out because I had everybody ready to go. We were going to go out with strength and dignity and precision. And we would have left from Bagram. And we would have kept Bagram, by the way, because of its very close relationship to China and where they make their missiles. But when you let the people come in by the thousands and thousands and thousands, they made a terrible mistake.
Yeah, they made a terrible mistake to say the least. So what he's referring to is they made a law that you can't get rid of them. So imagine a situation where you're like, hey, when we decide immigration laws, we're going to say that you have to vet people. So that is the law. People must be vetted. Okay. So then the government goes about on a campaign to bring people in and they don't really vet them. They just bring them in. So now you have a situation where the government itself has broken a law that says that the government itself must vet people before they come in. So the government goes ahead and dumps people in, and then it comes around and it says, oh, we vetted them. Well, who certified the vetting? Oh, we're good. We vetted them. Did you vet them at all? Yeah, we did, because we had to follow the law. So we just made the vetting standards so low that we basically vetted them by not vetting them, because not vetting them does vet people. You know what I mean? They voluntarily vetted themselves by deciding to come to America, the land of opportunity. Okay. And so the IG goes, oh, okay, well, you checked the box saying you vetted them. But did they? But did they vet them? There is a huge problem. I want to explain this in a bigger context, because this goes into why Donald Trump's presidency is so crucial. I got to figure out where center of my screen is here. Why Donald Trump's presidency is so crucial. There was the Chevron case back in 1984 that made a determination that the executive branch could basically define terms. They could define what they believe the law means and how they're going to execute it. And they could basically add things to the law in order to achieve the outcomes that the legislature wanted. So what this looks like is this. EPA, says the legislature to the EPA, EPA, we would like you to get us clean water. It's the law that you must get us clean water. And the EPA goes, okay, great. We're going to clean up the water. So now the EPA, as an executive department, gets to now define what clean water is. They also get to define what they're going to do to achieve the legal outcome of clean water. So the EPA might start out going, well, clean water means it's free from bacteria. So what are you going to do? Let's dump some chlorine in. And clean water is free from fluoride, or has a bunch of fluoride in this because it helps your teeth or whatever. And it pacifies the population, which, by the way, one of the main reasons why they put fluoride in city water supplies, it pacifies the population. Yeah, seriously, FYI, look it up. So anyways, so they don't fluoride in it. Anyways, you get down the road a little bit, and now you've got a situation where you've got lead in the water with lead pipes in Flint, Michigan. You've got chlorine, fluoride, who knows what else in there. But that's okay, because the EPA has defined all those chemical toxicants that on their own can kill you. They've defined that as clean. So now when someone brings a lawsuit and they go, hey, I'm getting sick from this dirty water, the executive branch comes to the judge and goes, well, judge, what you call dirty water, we call clean. And our mandate is to make clean water. And the judge looks at it and goes, well, looks like they've got clean water. They delegated the actual, rulemaking, interpretation of the laws to the executive branch. This was overturned last year by the Loper Bright decision, last year or 2 years ago. This was overturned by the Loper Bright decision. And what that said is that Chevron was wrong, and it puts the lawmaking capacity back into the hands of the legislature. This also means the legislature itself actually has to make definitions. They have to determine the steps. They can't just say to the EPA, go get us clean water. They have to tell the EPA what clean water is and what the EPA is to do to achieve that, and nothing more. The EPA cannot add things to achieve outcomes. They have to be directed. The executive branch of government, with the exception of the president himself, is essentially an overblown secretary. They're only supposed to do what they're told to do. And so when Trump says, they basically made it impossible to get people out, and then the IG comes out and goes, yeah, well, they did everything right. What he's literally saying is they followed the law and redefined what vetting means. And by doing that, this is why he goes, are you stupid? Are you stupid? Can you not see that they just redefined what it means to vet? I mean, it's kind of, there's so many ways you could take this. It's like, well, let's just redefine winning as coming in second place. It's like, good gravy. So there's a gentleman, which I've only probably ever played a clip or two from, Tyrus. And he's someone who's a frequent guest on the Gutfeld show on Fox News. And I actually don't know a ton about his background, but he always has some great clips. He is describing, again, with this two screens mentality going on, he is describing what he believes the left is projecting and what they're trying to create with all this chaos that they're sowing. And they literally have the weaponry to do it. They have illegal migrants and people that we haven't been vetted, and we have no idea what their intent is here in this country. And he's basically, in my opinion, very accurately forecasting what's about to come. And I should probably share the screen. So let me give you the screen. So many buttons to click when you're doing this by yourself. All right, here you go.
Make of this? Is this some cognitive dissonance, or
no?
Just love?
No, I think we're all being silly by saying those things out loud. This is just act two of what we saw during Trump's first term. First term, they tried to do it politically with impeachments and dossiers and stories, and the exact opposite happened. It made Trump a martyr. Mm-hmm. They tried to legally arrest him for bull. And it didn't work. But what they did was that on the second time around, they're now going after a certain population of people. The reason why you say, well, we can prove it. At what point in the last 10 years have we been seeing this where they've ever come back and said, we were wrong about Russia, or we didn't say that? That's not the reason why they're saying it. They're not saying it for rational people to question it. They're saying for people who just read a headline, he's Hitler. So then they go look and click. Now you see ICE agents trying to do their job and civilians trying to stop them because they're like Gestapo. So you have that. Now you have those riots. And with the government shutdown, the Democrats are not, and no time soon do they want it back, because they're going to get the second part of their faith, where you're going to have the people who are not getting welfare checks, people who are no longer getting the WIC programs, all the stuff. What do you think the worst of that group's going to do?
Yeah.
They're going to loot stores. So you're going to have anarchy in the street. You have an undersized police force. You have ICE and the National Guard dealing with immigration. So then pretty soon you're going to have to do what? National Guard is going to have to deal with just keeping people safe on the street, because we're in the two biggest cities, New York and California, you're going to have complete unrest. That's their plan. His presidency will be nothing but burning buildings and fires. And eventually it doesn't matter what's next, because they will ruin a second term with everybody fighting in the streets. And that's all they're going to see. So they don't have to say, oh, I didn't mean to call him Hitler. They've already done it. They've already convinced. If you convince 5 million people in this country that somebody's Hitler, you can destroy cities with that.
Yeah.
Look what happened in Minnesota. They are running their plan. There is no government. The government shutdown. This is Trump shutdown. They can't stop him, because if they worked with him, he would have one of the most successful presidencies in history. So that means what? An easy way for Vance or Rubio or whomever chooses to run the Republican Party? No. So they will destroy it from the ground up with the lower part of our society, unfortunately.
Yeah. They're going to try to destroy our society using the people who have become dependent on government, right? And that is just what they're going to do. All right. It's early in the morning, and anytime it's early in the morning, you got to get started with some coffee. I just took a sip of mine a second ago, and it was way too hot. Still haven't tried 1775 coffee? Now's your shot. The 1775 starter kit just dropped only 1,000 units. You're getting the bold dark roast that hits hard, the smooth medium roast, and the Vitality mushroom coffee for clean energy and laser focus and no crash. All single origin, small batch, toxin free, and mold free. Plus, you're also getting a golden spoon clip, because freedom isn't scooped with plastic. A frother strong enough to stir up your coffee and your mother-in-law's opinions. And a black 1775 tumbler. $170 worth of coffee and gear, yours for $99. This is for someone who's been watching 1775 blow up on Rumble, wondering if it's actually worth it. Spoiler, it is. Go to 1775coffee.com/studio and grab your starter kit before they're gone. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something just like Rumble does. So go enjoy some 1775 coffee. All right. So what he's talking about there, what Tyrus is saying is, like, clearly we've got these two screens, right? You've got the left and the right, and the left has decided, for the sake of power, to utilize Americans that have become dependent on the system. Right? When you cut SNAP benefits, you're going to send them to the streets. We are reaching an exponential threat to our nation that is harbored inside of our neighborhoods, right? There is a bleed and drain of the life energy of American citizens who are denied benefits that they have paid for, that are being given to people who have never once paid in a penny. It's just raw math. The virtue of the people of the United States has been weaponized as a cudgel to use against them. As Brett Weinstein and others have said, the American people have lost the immune response, right, to these things. And I mean, we could go on and on about the reasons why we've lost that immune response. And we're going to talk about a little bit of that when we get into the private. There's a great discussion by Brett Weinstein and his wife about one of the reasons why we've lost our immune response in America. So now let's jump over and let's start looking at this little Afghan shooter. So the Afghan terrorist, and I don't even want to say his name, who ambushed the National Guard in Washington, D.C., was housed in Bellingham with his wife and 5 children through the nonprofit World Relief Western Washington. 75% of the organization's income came from government grants, primarily through USAID. It's hard to believe that the dude's wife didn't know what he was up to. So let's take a look at this. This is a little news report. Whoops, I was already sharing screen. Darn it. This is a little news report that came out of Bellingham, Washington yesterday morning. After
an organization that has worked. Bellingham, the city where DC sniper John Allen Muhammad once lived, is in the news because another resident is accused of going to Washington, D.C. and shooting people. And this time, the circumstances are also complex.
I know we've definitely done a lot.
Whatcom County has opened its arms to Afghan refugees who fled during Operation Allies Welcome. World Relief of Whatcom County says they are proud to have welcomed nearly 400 Afghan refugees, and multiple churches have also helped with food and housing. In fact, the Washington Department of Social and Health Services says thousands of Afghan refugees sought humanitarian relief in 2022 and hundreds more in the last couple of years. A board member for the group Afghan Advantage, an organization that has worked to empower and educate local refugees, called the shooting allegations heinous, leaving the community heartbroken. Bellingham, the city where
Heartbroken. It's tragic what happened in DC, no doubt about that. And look at what they've done in Bellingham. They've incorporated churches, they've incorporated families, they've incorporated the city and the counties into redirecting funds to help these migrants. And again, our virtue, our open door, our willingness to care for the stranger, to expand the definition of who's your neighbor to include everybody under the sun, right? All at once, by the way. We even skip over our neighbor who's actually next to us suffering. We skip over our family that are suffering and struggling, and we donate our money to churches that don't help them, to pay our taxes to a government that doesn't assist them. And meanwhile, you know the list of things we pay for, right? Go look at Ron Paul and every Christmas thing of all the nonsense that we give away in government spending. You know, if you trim that fat, there's literally thousands of dollars to go around everyone, which is why Donald Trump has been able to do the math, and he's able to figure out with a little bit of tariff revenue and getting people off of the dole that shouldn't be on public support, we could actually eliminate like the whole tax code. Okay, so this is an exclusive coming from Laura Loomer about this Afghan man and how he got here and what he was doing here. So exclusive, the host of the Islamic jihadist from Afghanistan, who shot 2 National Guardsmen, has a history of opposing Trump's Islamic travel ban and supporting open borders, in addition to donating to Kamala Harris and Hillary Clinton. So pay attention to this. The family that hosted this man and his kids had a history of supporting open borders, in addition to donating to Kamala Harris and Hillary Clinton. The families of the 2 National Guardsmen who were shot by that man, the Afghan jihadists, should sue the rich liberals who hosted him and his family inside their homes in Bellingham, Washington. If Stanley and Valerie Creighton are rich enough to host Afghans inside their mansion, and since they raised money for the jihadi family and his family, and then they are rich enough to settle with the families of the victims or offer to pay their funeral costs when they succumb to their severe injuries. Stanley Creighton and his wife are loaded. These are members of citizens of Bellingham. Creighton is the founder of National Veterinary Associates, a veterinary roll-up with 900 general practices clinics across the country. Their home in Bellingham, Washington is worth $2.6 million. Stanley and his wife should be held accountable for hosting the Muslim killer in their home. As you can see below, posts from Valerie's social media show that she has spent the last several years advocating for open borders and attacking President Trump for his Islamic travel ban. She is anti-Trump, very pro-Islam, and advocated for Islamic resettlement in America. On her Facebook profile, she uses the they-them pronouns. Her Facebook post shows that in addition to hosting an Islamic terrorist from Afghanistan inside their guest house, Stanley and his wife have also previously hosted Syrian and Venezuelan refugees. There needs to be consequences for the rich right liberals who who endanger the lives of Americans. They should be sued into oblivion. So here's some screenshots from that. So here's the gentleman who's hosting these things, right? Talks about his startup in veterinary medicine. Here you have a post from his wife, Valerie, of non-religious America. 2/3 of non-religious Americans believe the country has responsibility to refugees. Only 1/4 of evangelicals believe the same. I was shocked by this. My husband, who had evangelical relatives, was not. Okay. 2 screens. 2/3 of non-religious Americans believe the country has a responsibility to refugees. Whether you're religious or not, we live in a Christian society, period. Okay. The golden rule applies. By the way, the golden rule does not apply to Islam. Just FYI, I've spoken at length with devout Muslims about the golden rule. It's not their thing. It's not their thing. Okay. But in the West, we live by that. So we want to do to others like we would want done to us. If our country was being bombed to shreds, we would love it for other countries to open their doors and welcome us in. Okay. However, we would probably bring our work ethic with us and all that kind of stuff. That's not what's happening here. But of course, she doesn't consider that. So here, her husband, who's like, well, I have an evangelical family and they don't want to help other people. That's because when you really understand Christianity, you can't help other people until you help yourself, then your family, and then your community. It's from inward outward, not from outward inward. So 2/3 of these non-religious Americans want to purify their inward vessel by purifying the outward vessel. Whereas true Christians and evangelicals focus on the inward vessel and radiate outward from that. Okay, next thing. She also posted a battle won, but I'm sure this is far from over. At least there's a stay. She's retweeting a post from the ACLU. Victory. Thank you to everyone who stood up today to say that refugees are welcome. Okay. And then here's the real kicker. So then these people are worth millions, 900 veterinary clinics, right? Worth millions. But yet, Stan and I would like to introduce you to Angel and Clara and their family. They arrived in our home in Bellingham last night from Bogota, Colombia, where they have been in a UN camp since fleeing Venezuela. They are in the U.S. as refugees. They arrived with 2 small backpacks, mostly filled with diapers, and the clothes on their backs, and will be staying in our guest house until they find permanent housing. Now, this is a ruse. I am almost certain that when you go look at this, yes, they rented out their guest house to this refugee family. And I bet somehow, some way, through USAID or some other source of money, they were making a very handsome rental profit on that house. I just can dang near guarantee it. We did not know that over 6 million Venezuelan citizens, 20% of the population, have fled in the last decade under Maduro regime, making it the second largest displacement crisis in the world. World Relief Western Washington is sponsoring about 20 people per month now from and around the world. Rather than a GoFundMe campaign, they advise that it is much better for them if people wishing to donate use the World Relief Amazon wish list to donate items directly to them. Any items ordered through the site will go to the refugee families in Bellingham, Whatcom County. And if you like to pitch in, I'm putting a link to the Amazon wish list in the site below. Stan and I have no affiliation with World Relief, but we can assure you that they are caring, efficient, and that the items and money are used appropriately. Why do I have my doubts? Okay, so there was another post here where they also started a GoFundMe specifically for this Afghanistan family. Okay, so they, rather than donate of their deep coffers, their millions of dollars, they came to the public to, raise money for them through GoFundMe. So here's another thing here. This is their donation link. So Valerie Creighton has donated to Act Blue, Harris for President, Act Blue, Harris for President, whole bunch of that. Okay, looks like they've got, you go far enough back, Act Blue, Jamie Harris for U.S. Senate, a lot of Act Blue, holy cow, Hillary for America, Swing Left, John Ossoff for Congress. Now, what's interesting about this is they donated $250 to John Ossoff for Congress. That's Georgia. This is Washington State. Why is she making a donation in Georgia? Two screens. This family and these individuals are engaged in essentially a nationwide campaign to swing left. Okay. That always blows my mind when people make individual campaign contributions to donors that are way out of their area. I don't know. Sometimes I don't know. I don't know. I've heard other people make the case like, well, you take the money where you can get it. And sometimes, like, if you're in a really red or really blue district and your preferred candidate is on a lock, there's no real point in donating money. So donate it to another district where someone's really got an uphill fight. Okay, I guess. I mean, maybe, but these guys made a lot of donations to Act Blue. Okay, so here is a little bit more about this gentleman. So this is an article by New York Post. And New York Post actually got a hold of the neighbors of this family after they lived with the Creightons they ended up moving into this house, and it says, inside American dream life of alleged U.S. National Guard terrorist as neighbors revealed dramatic FBI raid. So there was a raid on the house of the terrorist yesterday or 2 days ago, yesterday. And he was living in a $2,000 a month apartment in idyllic Washington State, a town where neighbors said the FBI busted into his home during a Wednesday raid. This man, 29, was often seen playing Call of Duty and FIFA, which is a soccer game, inside the bare apartment which he shared with his hijab-wearing wife and his 5 kids. Stunned neighbors in Bellingham told the Post on Thursday. Neighbors said the refugees who arrived in 2021 after the chaotic U.S. pullout from Afghanistan had no beds, and there were only some couch cushions they would sleep on inside the sparse apartment. They never made a peep, one neighbor said, adding that Lockwall didn't speak much English and his oldest son is 14. I believe this is part of a cover-up. If you look at a picture of his oldest son, the guy looks 45, okay? It really looks to me like they lied about his age. Bellingham is very liberal, the neighborhood said, noting the area, which housed Afghan evacuees following the botched withdrawal, was very welcoming, very diverse, and very open. There are 2 Afghan murderers now that have come out of Bellingham, Washington. They're using your taxpayers to harbor people who have very nefarious intent. But don't worry, they don't make a peep. Well, if I was going into another country to perform terrorist acts, I wouldn't want to draw attention to myself either, dum-dum. Duh. Lockwall, who fought in Afghanistan and came to the U.S. under the Biden-era Operation Allies welcome program, allegedly opened fire and struck 2 National Guard troops just blocks away from the White House around 2:15 on Wednesday. National Guard members Sarah Beckstrom, 20, and Andrew Wolf. Sarah Beckstrom is our officer that passed away, or Guard member that passed away, who had been patrolling at the time, were critically wounded in the attack. Anyways, super, super sad, but it's just another one of these instances where our virtue's been weaponized against us. So it goes on to say, a motive of the shooting is still unclear. He yelled Allah Akbar while he did it. He told you what his motive was. Allah Akbar. He told you what his motive was. If I go kill someone, and as I'm doing it, I say, in the name of God, I just told you what my motive was. There's no questioning this. Officials have described it as a targeted attack. Well, you think? Oh, he had something out personal for Sarah. Oh, yeah, because they crossed paths. She's from West Virginia. He's from Afghanistan, living in Washington State. Oh, yeah, because they crossed. She just signed up for the Guard 24 hours previous. Allah Akbar. Oh, the motive is unclear. No, it's not. It's totally clear. Officials have described it as a target attack and laid claim that Lakanawal drove across the country from Washington State to carry out the shooting rampage. Lakanawal, whom the CIA confirmed worked with one of his elite counterterrorism Unit 0 in Afghanistan, is facing at least 3 counts of assault with intent to kill and a criminal possession of a weapon. He faces up to 15 years behind bars. Pause that for just a moment. I traveled from Washington State. I flew on a plane. I didn't drive. I traveled from Washington State to the District of Columbia. I had a bullhorn in my backpack. I made a ruckus and I touched a gate. And I was facing 40 years in jail. 40 years in jail. This gentleman traveled from Washington State to the District of Columbia with a gun. I didn't have a gun. Walked on the street and shot 2 American National Guardsmen in the head. And he's facing 15 years in prison. Now, granted, that was before one of them died. And so now it'll be murder charges with death penalty, most likely. But that's what he was facing. I've said it many times. I would have been better off going to the Capitol and carjacking someone than going to protest on the Capitol lawn over a stolen election. Think about that for just a second. Good freaking gravy. Faces up to 15 years behind bars for shooting people in the head. But I pushed on a gate and I was looking at 40 years. 40 years. I will tell you very early, we'll do everything in our power to seek the death penalty, said Pam Bondi. Hope they do. And I am not someone who wants to just, constantly be throwing out punishment and stuff like that. But bad news bears, man. Bad news bears. Okay. Just thinking about that, man. So here's another instance where, again, in the Seattle area, this apparently is going to be a problem for us up here in the Seattle area, is we had a honor killing. So just recently down in the Tacoma area, there was another Afghan migrant who his daughter, got involved with the West, the devilish West. And he took his daughter out in front of her, I believe it was her high school, and did an attempted to murder her in front of everybody, an honor killing. Now, it was stopped, and he's now sitting in jail, but he felt totally justified in going in front of a bunch of school children and murdering his own daughter as an honor killing. So here we have another situation of an honor killing in the United States of America. You can take the man out of the trailer park, but you can't take the trailer park out of the man. Well, here you go. You can take a man out of Afghanistan, but you can't take Afghanistan out of the man. Seattle area man charged with murder after honor killing his wife, prosecutors. The King County Prosecution's Attorney's Office on Wednesday charged Sayer Nazir Sadit with murder in the first degree of honor killing his wife. So basically, he had suspected that his wife had been unfaithful and stewed about it for 7 to 10 days. And he describes waking up shortly before 7 a.m., rolling her onto her back and strangling her for 15 to 20 minutes. At one point, he kneeled on her chest, referring to the killing. He referred to the killing as an honor killing and told investigators he believed the other man suspected should also be killed, though he said that he lacked the means to buy a gun. Prosecutors have requested a $3 million bail, citing the severity of the allegations and Sadit's statements about killing another person and his recent immigration from Afghanistan, which they argue poses a significant flight risk. The homicide is the 13th domestic violence-related killing in King County in 2025, of which 12 involved what prosecutors are calling intimate partner violence. And then they changed the article to beware of domestic violence, as if this was exclusively a domestic violence problem. This is a cultural problem. Clearly, it's a cultural problem. If you don't believe that, go talk to pretty much any soldier who went and spent any significant amount of time overseas, and this is almost universal. This is almost a universal feeling that I have heard from them. Now, keep in mind, I have to tell you, my generation grew up in the military, or not in the military, but my generation grew up with a 20-year overseas war. Just for perspective, for anybody that's older than I am, I have not lived 1 minute of my adult life without being in active combat around the world. Since the moment 9/11 happened, I have watched my peers enlist, train, deploy, come home, have PTSD, redeploy, come home, have worse PTSD, redeploy, come home, get a divorce, get drunk, go to rehab, get out of the military, go back to college, and you know what I mean? It's just this cycle. Deploy, PTSD, my entire adult life. I feel just as bad for anybody under 30. They don't even remember a time when there was political sanity, right? Their entire adult life has spent since Donald Trump came down the escalator and all hell broke loose. So here's a gentleman who's been overseas, and he's telling people, hey, listen, what's happening over there is coming here. He's surprised it hasn't happened already.
Where did you serve? Where did you serve over in the Middle East?
In '91, I was in the first Persian excursion.
What's your feeling about those people? The way that they feel about the U.S.
They hate us with a passion.
Did you? Why?
Why? I got mine. Because we're us.
How did they treat you when you were there?
Well, with respect, because I was armed.
Yeah.
Okay, but when you're not armed, you're nothing but the infidel, and they're. To me, it's kind of like having a dog that you got to tie a pork chop around your neck to play with you. Okay, the only reason they like us or even give you the time of day is because we're foolish enough to give them money or whatever they need.
Very
at the time.
Well said.
But as soon as they're done with us, or they got somebody to give them bigger and better, we're the infidel again, and we deserve to die. That's just the way.
Wow. So I go back to a question. I don't know if you were in when we had our little together time, but.
No, he wasn't there.
He wasn't here?
Uh-uh.
I have a very... and give
be careful of the question.
No. You got short, concise, powerful answers. I like them. Question is, how surprised would you be within the next... Actually, no, let me say it the other way. How long do you think it is until we have another 9/11?
I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet.
Really?
I tell you what, as soon as they figure out how to get a nuclear device in here, we will lose the city. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. As soon as they figure out how to do it or where to get it through, we will lose the city. I guarantee you that.
And where's the most open door right now?
Yeah.
Right here. Texas,
Well,
Arizona.
you're on the front lines, bro.
Yeah.
From here all the way up through Arizona, California, everywhere.
You're on the front lines, man. The phrase that the populists have started to say is every town a border town. But if you are really on in a border town in Texas or any of those states, you know it's the front lines, right? It's one thing. I had these never-ending discussions with a gentleman in prison. His name was Jake, his really good friend. Before I tell this story, though, I want to get to the chat. Sapphire Patriot, I spent time overseas, and I do concur with you, Taylor. Yes, absolutely, right? When he says the only reason they play with us is because we, like a dog, you have to tie a pork chop around their nest. It's because they think there's something to get. Anybody who's ever trained dogs, when you have the treats, they're locked in. When you don't, like 50-50 on you, right? That's the reality over there. They're just in it for the benefit. Now, let's look domestically. Oh, the Somalis, how are they doing? They could give a crap about you. They would leave you. Oh, be kind to your neighbor. They'll leave you bleeding out on the side of the road. They don't care unless you're cutting them a check. And then they want to help, right? Super self-interested. Sapphire Patriot, Sarah Sings says, good morning. Sarah Sings, welcome. Good morning. That looks like a new name. You might be the 20th. That's awesome. Sapphire Patriot, as a female, it was 10 times worse. We had different rules and even our male soldiers because of that culture. Oh my goodness. So part of this is like when all these Afghans got brought over, we immediately, because a lot of them got housed on military bases, we immediately started seeing sexual assaults, rapes on base. These people are... I understand that my audience generally doesn't go down dark holes on the internet, but you can go watch women who go on tourism to the Middle East and their experiences just walking down the street. It's not good. And now that is making its way to France. It's making its way to London. It's making its way to New York, to LA, to Chicago, to Minneapolis, right? It's not even safe for a woman to walk down the street. I almost hate to talk about this stuff, and I try to avoid it because it makes you sound like such a bigot. But Muslim men do not respect women. There's a reason why they want to cover you up. It's because they sexually objectify you, and then they want to own you as property. So they want to objectify you, cover you up so other men can't objectify you because they objectify everyone else. It's like ultimate projection. They hate women. They hate women, and they sexually objectify them. And I mean, I had my friend that was Al-Qaeda in prison, and the most disturbing thing that he ever talked about, and I had lots of conversations. We played trivia like all the time, right? The way he talked about women, it was abhorrent. It was abhorrent. But he thought there was nothing wrong with it, and he would go flirt with the female guards and all this stuff. But the moment they turned on him and he realized they weren't interested in them, they became adulterous, sluts, blah blah blah, and he just had all these horrible things to say. If you were not someone that he thought he could bed or, get something from you, you immediately became garbage to be disposed of. And, why aren't you covered up? It was just horrible. It was honestly one of the most disturbing things about my conversations with him was it oftentimes, he would, Pakistan is a secular nation. I don't know if people know this or not. Everybody's Muslim, right? And they enforce Islam culturally. Okay. Anybody who's ever lived in a strong religious community, there's a lot of law enforcement culturally that happens, or a lot of enforcement of social morals and mores that happen socially. So he's in Pakistan, and in Pakistan, even though they're sectarian, right, they're not a Muslim country, which is one of the reasons why they can be allies of the United States and stuff like that. But they had a female president. Well, the female president, I don't know what happened to her. I can't remember her name. She came up in trivia a lot because she was so unique. The first female president in the Muslim world. Well, yeah. Well, after she came out of office, she fled the country, came back, and then they killed her. The way he described the justification for killing her was one of the most heinous things I've ever heard. And it was one of those deals where I'm like, she was your president. She was your president. And you made this an honor killing? That's exactly what I thought of when he told me that. Okay, I hate to rant on those guys because it's not in my nature. But like Sapphire Patriot says, at a certain point, yeah, you've got to do something. Ponyboy says, Feliz cumpleaños, Taylor. Que Dios te bendiga. Que Dios te bendiga. What days to Bendiga. I don't know the Bendiga. 42, if that's the question. I think that's what you're asking. Pony Boy, may God bless you and yours. Dios T Bendiga, whatever. Is that what, and yours, is that T Bendiga means? And Sapphire Patriot, yes, it does have to be talked about. Okay, so another thing that's interesting about this is I was already sharing the screen. I came to the conclusion the other day of something that I've decided is basically very sinister. Anytime a shooter, an assassin, or a purveyor of violence comes from the left, they call him a lone shooter. Say he worked alone, radicalized in the dark in his underwear, eating Cheetos, watching YouTube. Nobody talked to him, right? That's the idea. If the shooter has any kind of left-leaning ideation, lone wolf, nothing to do with them. If the shooter or the assassin or the purveyor of violence has any association or ideology that lines up with the right, coordinated effort, conspiracy, got to go after everyone, product of his society, we must re-educate the populace, right? Have you noticed that? Have you noticed how anytime it comes from the left, transgender, furry groups, chat rooms, lone wolf, comes from the right, legitimately a lone wolf, like a Timothy McVeigh, right? An actual lone wolf, right? They turn it out to be some giant conspiracy that never existed. It's super consistent. So now we're getting a little bit of information about this terror attack. Beware of the people who try to claim that this is a lone wolf, that this is just some guy who worked for the CIA in Afghanistan on their death squads, which, by the way, I wish we didn't have to, fund that stuff. But it's not just some guy in Afghanistan who became disaffected, came over to the United States and just snapped and went mentally insane all of a sudden. No way. No way. If that narrative comes out, you can be absolutely certain there's a cover-up taking place. So let's look at this. Jennifer Van Laar says, new information about Washington, D.C. terror attack. According to multiple national security, military, and law enforcement sources speaking to Red State on condition of anonymity, the biometric database is being accessed to identify all of the shooter's contacts, all of his possible connections, and to absolutely positively identify him and his potential co-conspirators. Also, prior to Wednesday's attack, there were hundreds of Google inquiries of his name and Washington, D.C., raising the possibility that this was coordinated with others, or at the very least, that a large network knew the terroristic act was going to occur. Those IPs are being tracked. Law enforcement agencies throughout the country have been given certain alerts on certain key contacts that is known to have had from Washington State to San Diego to DC and several other states in the nation. So now let's jump into this a little bit more, and I'll show you exactly what it is they're talking about. So you come to... this is James Lee posts this, and all of a sudden that Google information, boop, if you go look it up right now, it's gone. Oh, your search doesn't have enough data to show here. So we went from having enough data to not having enough data, but fortunately, internet sleuths have gotten pretty good at this, and they've learned that people make things go away, and so they tend to share them. So let me show you this here. I wasn't screen sharing the whole time. All right, so here we go, screen share. So this now you cannot look up, but it was captured, and here is the searching of his name. Why would 100 individuals search for that name? And then over here, less, 20 or so, but then over here, you're 35, 40 people frequently, regularly, over and over and over again, looking up that name. Why would they be looking up that name? Well, probably because they knew something was up and they were just waiting to see if he'd done it, or did he get caught? Like what if he came into DC and got a gun charge and the people who sent him don't know that he got the gun charge because, you get one phone call. And so they're Googling his name to see if it pops up in the news and see if he's, what he's doing. Unbelievable. Unfreaking believable. Okay. That was weird. All right. So the next thing to take a look at here is in response to all of this, Donald Trump put out a post last night that this is rapid response. See, it's rapid response 47. So what this X page is this is the White House's like war room page. Okay. Ponyboy says, yeah, that is pretty strange, and wouldn't be surprised if they disabled that search filter to be able to see who searches certain things. Yeah. Well, now, I mean, there's millions of searches, right? So the fact that they're like, oh, we can't find enough data. Dude, people are searching like crazy. Welcome all of our listeners on X. We have a load of you on X right now. Welcome. I'm glad to have you. It would be awesome of those of you listening on X, if you're able to, jump over to Rumble and subscribe, and even join us over there in the Rumble chat room. We love having good chats. We got lots of people in there chatting. We'd love to have you come join us over on Rumble. So if you can, figure out how to get there, and we'd love to have you join us on Rumble. Okay, so this Telegram or X page, excuse me, not Telegram page, X page, Rapid Response 47. This page is associated with the White House. And in fact, we'll just show you here. So this page is associated with the White House, an affiliate of @White House. Okay. So this is the White House's Rapid Response page. And it had this to say, it said this is one of the most important messages ever released by President Trump. Read every word. So we're going to do just that. A very happy Thanksgiving salutation to all of our great American citizens and patriots who have been so nice, weaponization of virtue, so nice in allowing our country to be divided, disrupted, carved up, murdered, beaten, mugged, and laughed at, along with certain other foolish countries throughout the world for being politically correct and just plain stupid when it comes to immigration. The official United States foreign population stands at 53 million people, according to the census, most of which are on welfare from failed nations or from prisons, mental institutions, gangs, or drug cartels. They and their children are supported through massive payments from patriotic American citizens who, because of their beautiful hearts, their virtue, do not want to openly complain or cause trouble in any way, shape, or form. They put up with what has happened to our country, but it's eating them alive to do so. A migrant earning $30,000 with a green card will get roughly $50,000 in yearly benefits for their family. The real migrant population is much higher. This refugee burden is the leading cause of social dysfunction in America, something that did not exist after World War II. Failed schools, high crime, urban decay, overcrowded hospitals, housing shortages, and large deficits. As an example, hundreds of thousands of refugees from Somalia are completely taking over the once great state of Minnesota. Somalian gangs are roving the streets looking for prey, as our wonderful people stay locked in their apartments and houses, hoping against hope that they will be left alone. The seriously retarded governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, does nothing, either through fear, incompetence, or both. While the worst congressman woman in our country, Ilhan Omar, always wrapped in her swaddling hijab and who probably came to the U.S. illegally in that you are not allowed to marry your brother, does nothing but hatefully complain about our country, its constitution, and how badly she is treated when her place of origin is a decadent, backward, and crime-ridden nation, which is essentially not even a country for lack of government, military, police, schools, etc. Even as we have progressed technologically, immigration policy has eroded those gains and living conditions for many. I will permanently pause migration from all third world countries to allow the U.S. system to fully recover, terminate all of the millions of Biden illegal admissions, including those signed by Sleepy Joe Biden's auto pen, and remove anyone who is not a net asset to the United States or is incapable of loving our country. End all federal benefits and subsidies to non-citizens of our country, denaturalize migrants who undermine domestic tranquility, and deport any foreign national who is a public charge. We don't pay you to be here. You pay us to be here. Public charge, security risk, or non-compatible with Western civilization. These goals will be pursued with the aim of achieving a major reduction in illegal and disruptive populations, including those admitted through an unauthorized and illegal auto-pen approval process. Only reverse migration can fully cure this situation. Other than that, happy Thanksgiving to all, except those that hate, steal, murder, and destroy everything that America stands for. You won't be here for long. That is an incredibly powerful statement from the President of the United States. That is hard to top in clarity. It's hard to top in even when he's being deadly serious, being kind of funny. The severely retarded governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz. He's right. If you're here, you shouldn't be a public charge. You should be a net benefit to the country, not a net loss to the country. How about we pause immigration from all countries till we can get the illegals out? I agree with that. Now, here's my belief on this. There's very little immigration from other than third world countries. There's no real reason to leave England if you're, an English citizen, unless you just like have a legit better job. Like you don't need to come here for any particular benefits. If you're a patriotic citizen of Germany, there's really no motive to come to the United States unless there's a specific calling to you to come do it. It's not like you're fleeing from anything specific. So I don't have a problem with one-off immigration. I don't have a problem with that at all. I do think it's smart to just shut it off from the third world, which, if my estimation, probably makes up 80 or 90% of the total immigration, right? And the immigration from the first world, those people come fully vetted. We're not accidentally importing murderers from Britain. Okay. It's not happening. We are accidentally importing murderers from Syria on a regular basis. That's the problem. So I agree with you, Sapphire Patriot, but at the same time, that's not the hill I'd die on. But the third world is pretty much like 80 or 90% or probably more of our total immigration. Marco Rubio explained, he was on the Ben Shapiro show for a moment, and he explained the power of deportation and kind of the role in this. So we're going to listen to him, and nobody is entitled to be here that wasn't born here. That is the ultimate message.
Yeah, well, let's start with the baseline. Okay, no one is entitled to a student visa to enter the United States. No one. It's not a constitutional right. It's not a law. We every day, consular officers on the ground in face-to-face interviews are denying people visas for all kinds of reasons. Because we think you're going to overstay, because we think your family member is a member of a drug ring, whatever it may be. We deny visas every day all over the world. No one's entitled to a visa. Let's start with that. Because I hear some of this reporting out there, like if somehow you're allowed to have a visa unless we can come up with a reason why you shouldn't have one. That's not true. The burden of proof is the other way. Now, let's say you go to a window somewhere in the world and say, I want to go to the United States to study at a university. And as part of that interview, it comes out, you think Hamas is actually a good group. We probably would not let you in. I would hope we wouldn't let you in. Okay. But let's say we don't ask you that question and you get into the US on a student visa, and all of a sudden it becomes obvious you think Hamas is a good group. Well, then we should revoke your visa. In essence, if we would have denied, if we'd learned things about you once you're here that would have caused us to deny you a visa when you were overseas, that's grounds for revocation. It is not in the national interest of the United States. It's not in our foreign policy interest. It's not in our national security interest to invite people onto our university campuses who are not just going to go there to study physics or engineering, but who are also going to go there to foment movements that support and excuse foreign terrorist organizations who are committed to the destruction of the United States and the killing and the raping and the kidnapping of innocent civilians, not just in Israel, but anywhere they can get their hands on them. That's not in our national interest. So we have a right to deny visas before you get here, and we have a right to revoke them if we believe that your presence in our country undermines our national interest, our national security, and our foreign policy. And that's what we intend to do. Now, listen, there are other student visas that are being canceled that have nothing to do with us, by the way. And that has to do with someone, for example, who is here on a student visa and has a DUI. And I don't know, that's not us, that's DHS. But I don't know if people realize if you commit a crime while you're in the US, that's an automatic grounds for revoking your visa. And no one was ever doing it. They weren't cross-referencing the system. Now they're starting to do that. So that's the majority of these. But we have identified, I can't tell you the exact number because it's static and it's constantly moving. But when someone is presented to me and it's clear that this person is a supporter of a foreign terrorist organization, we're going to remove them from the country. You're not going to be here. It's just that simple. What a stupid thing. What a ridiculous thing to invite people in your country so they can be part of these movements that are terrorizing fellow students, tearing up campuses, shutting down campuses. We have campuses in America that couldn't even operate for weeks. People couldn't go to class. Are we crazy? What other country in the world would allow this? We shouldn't allow it.
Yeah, we shouldn't allow it for sure. If there's any reason why they could deny you a passport to come or a visa to come here in the first place, that's cause to revoke it. Another thing, anybody who's here on a visa, any crime they commit, from a minor misdemeanor shoplift or a DUI, automatic grounds for expulsion. You got to follow all the rules. It just wasn't being enforced. Again, our virtue had completely and totally been weaponized against us. Okay, we are going to now take just a moment to carve out a little bit of time to talk about something that I think is really, really fun. And what that is it's morning kick. Now, here you stick with me through this. When we get done with this ad, I want to say something about it. Hey, you. There's this video. It's from Chuck Norris. It was insane. He's in his 80s and says he still feels like he's in his 50s. It was pretty shocking. He had some pretty cool tips in there too on what he's doing, including those 3 foods that he avoids like the plague. He explained all the things he was doing, and it was super simple. And they're so easy. You can do them right at home. When I first saw this, I knew I had to share this with you all. Since what happened to Chuck could also happen to you, but with any new method, of course, your results can vary. But the video is definitely worth checking out. Watch this method by clicking on the link in the chat or scanning the QR code on your screen. You won't believe how simple it is. Okay, I think that is a really hilarious ad because I actually don't have any idea what it's about, but it's about Chuck Norris. So I wanted to make sure I got a little bit of Chuck Norris in before we before we got too much farther. Anyways, that's all. Thanks for sticking with me on that one. Someone's going to have to tell me exactly what 3 foods that Chuck Norris is telling us to avoid. Okay. So we could revoke any visa. There was a little minor nuance thing. He said it's static and it's always moving. What he probably should have said was it's dynamic and it's always moving. Static is that it doesn't really move. But anyways, I digress. Now, the situation with the mass migration into the United States, both coming up through the southern border as well as coming through the Middle Eastern Arab states, has been well known to us. The huge concern about the Middle Eastern Arab states is we know what kind of terrorist behavior they'll engage in. This is Tulsi Gabbard from a couple of months ago warning us about just this.
Really what you're seeing here today and what you'll continue to see is a unified effort across President Trump's national security team, the Department of Homeland Security, towards our mission, which is to ensure a safe, free, and prosperous society for Americans. As Director of National Intelligence, there are a number of areas where we are focused. The president talked about in his speech over 21.
Sorry, guys, that got a little weird for just a moment. Let me go back to this here. So she just got done saying 21, wrong screen. She just got done saying 21 million migrants crossed the southern border under Joe Biden. 21 million in 4 years, guys. That's massive.
We don't know who they are. They have not been vetted. We don't know where they are. I'll give you one quick example of one of the problems that we are getting after. From Central Asia, there were over 4,000 people who came across our borders using an ISIS-affiliated network. Our National Counterterrorism Center.
I got to say something. There's a little bit of a problem when they say, what she just called it, what'd she call it? The Near East. Let me go back. Let me go back and exactly what phrase she used.
Using an ISIS-affiliated 4,000 people who came across our borders using an ISIS-affiliated.
Where's it?
One of the problems that we are getting after. From Central Asia.
Central Asia. That phrase is a problem. Where is Central Asia? Where's Central Asia? Answer the question. Where's Central Asia? Are we talking about Mongolia? Are we talking about, Western China? Are we talking about where is Central Asia? I don't know where Central Asia is. I talked to my Afghanistan friend, and it's kind of like this weird thing. Not my Afghanistan, my Pakistani friend. Al-Qaeda guy, right? Kind of this weird thing. Well, we're Central Asian. Sometimes we're Middle Eastern. Sometimes we're, on the Indian subcontinent. They change where it makes it hard. Central Asia, Middle East, just South Asia, like it becomes kind of nebulous for us Americans. We don't understand these geographic regions. Like if I showed you a map of China and I showed you a map of Israel, those 2 places, and then I said, okay, tell me all the countries in between. Most people couldn't get past Israel, and most people couldn't get further west than China. Okay. There's a whole bunch of this, and that whole idea of Central Asia, to us, it doesn't scream out Muslim. Middle Eastern screams out Muslim. Central Asia screams out, I don't know where they're from. That's a problem, in my opinion.
For over 4,000 people who came across our borders using an ISIS-affiliated network. Our National Counterterrorism Center went through and identified those individuals. There were hundreds of them who were either known terrorists or associated with known terrorists. That information was provided to the Biden administration. You may remember in some of the news, a little over 100 of those people were arrested in 2024. Of those who were arrested, only 8 were either deported or remained in custody. Only 8. The rest of them were released back into our country. Where are they? What are they doing? What may they be plotting? This is just the beginning. There are many, many areas that we need to stay very focused on, working with Department of Homeland Security, working with the FBI to ensure that we're keeping the American people safe. Our Counterterrorism Center is working on making sure that we have that single source for vetting so that we can figure out who is actually in our country and identify those who pose a threat and get them removed. The president's designation of the cartels as foreign terrorist organizations falls directly into this, especially as we're seeing some of the tactics that these cartels are using reflect some of the tactics that we've seen used by Islamist terrorists in countries that many of us have served in overseas. Our mission is very clear. Our objective is to keep the American people safe. I'm grateful to be a part of this team that President Trump has assembled to accomplish that mission.
It would be xenophobic of me to have no idea of anything that's going on over another country and to cast dispersions on that. But that's not my default programming. My default programming is love everybody. Everybody's great. Everybody take care of themselves. It'll be awesome. You do you, boo. That's my default programming. Okay. However, people who, my friends, my peers, remember, my entire life has been wrapped up in a global conflict that is unresolvable. This is way worse than Vietnam. Those of you that lived during the Vietnam era, you have no idea what has happened to this current generation. You have no idea. We were silenced. We were pacified. We've been drugged. We've been sold a bill of goods. And we've been at war the whole time. Okay? The structure that the Vietnam vets came back to, as far as like the United States function and stuff like that, that's the days we want to harken back to, when things looked like they worked. Before we had 52 illegal aliens in this country who are on the public dime, right? It's way worse. Wake up, smell the coffee. It's way worse. Not only have we been engaged in this long war, which creates disaffection and dissatisfaction among the U.S. population that has to fight those wars, because we see what they're doing over there, and then we come home and people who've never been over there, like this couple up in Bellingham, are like, oh, please, we want the death squads. Yes, have a CIA assassin and his family come live in our home. Let us raise a GoFundMe for him. We're so compassionate. You let a death squad person into your home, I think he can take care of himself. Do you think they informed the Creightons that they had a CIA-trained Black Ops operative who was used to hunt down his own people living in their home? You don't think that will create a little bit of cognitive dissonance or dissatisfaction when he comes home to America and we don't kiss the ground he walks on? And all of a sudden we become the enemy because we're the ones who talked him into killing his own people, so it totally justifies him killing us. Why not? You have to be smart about this. You just have to think in common sense. Like any soldier, like the one we listened to earlier, they go over there and it's like the only reason they talk to us is because it's like a dog. We have a pork chop tied around our neck, so they're like, oh yeah, we like you, until somebody comes along with a bigger pork chop. Oh, it's absolutely insanity. Now, on another note, Freddie O'Connell of Nashville is now under criminal investigation for aiding and abetting illegal immigrants. This is kind of a big deal. So this is the United States attorney out of that area, and he is talking about the mayor of Nashville and how it's time for him to face the music.
Well, you've heard it. The individuals that the mayor is standing with are murderers, rapists, drug traffickers, sexual predators, child traffickers. The list goes on. Which is why I will always stand on the rule of law and with ICE. And I don't just stand with ICE, I'll stand in front of ICE. Because we, the people, have had enough. I choose my community, my state, and my family over this type of nonsense. Which is why, due to the remarks of Freddie O'Connell and the potential for aiding and abetting illegal immigration, the Homeland Security and the Judiciary Committees will be conducting an investigation into the mayor of Nashville, his conduct, and whether or not federal dollars have been used in criminal enterprise. I will not back down. I will not relent, and I will always stand with law enforcement. I want my community and I want my country back. This is Andy Ogle.
Excuse me, I said he was some investigated by Andy Ogles. He's a congressman, but he's going to be investigating the Nashville specifically for aiding and abetting illegal immigration. How many of our elected public officials have aided and abetted illegal immigration? The answer is stunning. Well, first of all, pretty much the entire social safety net program has been aiding and abetting illegal immigration. So there's one strike, but don't worry, it's legal. Even though we have a law before all this that said you can't aid or abet illegal immigration, then we created another law that basically said, unless we're paying them money, then it's not illegal because we're paying them to be here. It gets retarded. And I'm taking that word back because Donald Trump called Tim Walz retarded. If you look up in the dictionary, the word retarded, it'll give you a clear definition of it. And then it will say severely retarded, and there'll be a picture of Tim Walz. Okay. So he is the textbook definition of severely retarded. I think it's great. Okay. John Atakis says, happy birthday. I'd say, hope your day is bright and sunny, but Seattle is so... Ugh. Instead, I hope you're at least your socks stay dry. Happy B-Day. Well, Dad, trick's on you. I'm actually in northern Idaho, and it's snowing outside. So, haha, it's sunny. Look at that. Some sunshine. It would make my image really bad. It's already bad enough to have like an unmade bed behind me. Okay. So now let's take a look at Matt Gaetz here. Matt Gaetz had a little bit to say about this illegal immigration situation and how the money, it's all about the money.
To the point about how absurd it is, we are paying for their pensions, but we also have paid to retire debt that Ukraine incurred before the Russian invasion.
Oh, I need to back up. Because I need to introduce this next part. All right, so that kind of concludes all of the illegal immigration stuff. Trump is going to go on a tear. He's going to start revoking visas. If anybody has ever liked a Facebook post that's pro-Hamas and you're here on a visa, you're probably going home, right? He's going to clearly be going after people. If you or someone you know is an employer who is knowingly hiring illegal aliens right now, I would encourage them to actively seek to replace those workers with American citizens and dump them from your payroll because they're going to bring a lot of heat on you. I promise you this, as someone who was persecuted by the government for his involvement in January 6th. They came for everyone. They came for me. They came for my bank account. They went through IRS files. They came for my business license. They came for everything. If you are harboring illegals and another incident happens, another shooting happens, another dramatic act of terror happens, the circle of who they, the government, are going to come after will expand and expand and expand. You might get a free pass. You might be able to watch, your illegal immigrants get deported and nothing happens. But the harder it is to do the deportation, the more the left and the Marxists and the communists and the Islamists dig in, the bigger the circle of punishment to those that aid and abet will be. It's not a threat. I can't make one. I have no power. I'm just stating something that I see as obvious, stating something that I've studied in multiple nations as they've gone through the pendulum swing, right? Is the harder these people fight being deported, the larger the zone of who they're going to go after, because part of getting them to self-support is getting them to not have employment, to not have benefits. If you're a government worker and you're filling out information for an illegal alien to receive benefits, and you even sniff that there might be something suspect about the application, you might be responsible for it, right? As an employer, same thing. So please spread the word, make people aware. It's got to stop. Start hiring Americans. Let go of the illegals. They can go find their way back home. Hopefully, we've done such a good job here in America that we have shown these people how to have a proper civilization and a proper society, and how to, appropriately clean up your buildings and your office space. And, hopefully they've learned some really great work skills, and maybe even become bilingual, and maybe they've learned how to manage some money. Let's just project all the best onto them. Let's send them home and see how they change their home countries. Let's see how that goes. Right now that these Somalians have come into America and they see how great it is to be an industrious people, and how much resources we have, so much resources that we can literally end poverty if we chose to, as long as we didn't keep adding poor people into the system, right? Let them go back to Somalia and recreate it there. We've set you such a good example. Go do it. No, they won't. They won't. Okay, so the next thing is Ukraine. So I started following Russia's lead, negotiator that is opposite Steve Witkoff. I started following him. Guy's really based. Holy cow. It's got some great tweets. I mean, clearly he wants to see peace between Russia and the United States. It's kind of a little bit stunning, actually, to read some of the tweets. And he's calling out fake news and stuff like that. I was like, this is weird. So one of the things that is happening with this 28-point plan peace agreement that both the Russians and the Ukrainians have tentatively signed on to, with details to be discussed, right? One of the details is on the Ukrainian side, there's supposed to be full accountability for where all the war lending went, all the money that we gave them for war went. Zelensky and the Ukrainians are balking at that. They don't want any kind of audit or any kind of accountability for the money that was sent over there. But that's one of the things that the Russians are kind of insisting on is, hey, the West gave these guys literally like billions and billions of dollars. Where did it go? Well, Matt Gaetz has a little something to say about that. Where did it go?
To the point about how absurd it is, we are paying for their pensions, but we also have paid to retire debt that Ukraine incurred before the Russian invasion. So we are $34.7 trillion in debt. We go another $1 trillion in debt every 100 days, and we are paying to retire Ukraine's debt. We are borrowing money from China at a higher interest rate to retire. To the point about how
we warned them, stop sending poison.
Okay. There is a little bit of an internet glitch that happens when I play a video. If I go to my next tab and the video starts playing, the whole page is like unresponsive. So I apologize for the little bit of overlap there. But that is something that Matt Gaetz is explaining. As part of all this Ukrainian funding, we went to pay off the debt they incurred before the operation started. Gosh, I wish somebody would come in and bail us out like that. So we, the people, incurred Ukraine's sovereign debt. Does anybody understand what that means? I do. We paid it off. They didn't know anybody after that, and then we continued to send billions and billions of dollars. So what happened to the billions and billions of dollars? Well, Zelensky, pretty sure this was this morning that he woke up to this. Yeah, it's this morning, 2:50 a.m. this morning. In England, British News, Sky News, broke it. This is the story. Zelensky's top partner has already fled the country under investigation for stolen funds, and now Zelensky himself is being raided this morning.
A line of breaking news to bring you, coming to us from out of Ukraine. Now, you will know that there has been a corruption scandal engulfing that man's administration, President Volodymyr Zelensky. In the last few minutes, officials have reported that the anti-corruption authorities, that is NABU, have carried out searches of President Zelensky's offices. That's according to officials there.
Well, yes, and as we're saying, Ukraine has been caught up in this damaging corruption scandal. Anti-corruption agencies have been talking about how they believe that some of President Zelensky's close associates could be involved in some kind of plot. The thought is that perhaps money has been skimmed off Ukraine's energy sector. And this scandal erupting, of course, while Ukrainians are suffering blackouts.
Okay. Money has been skimmed off over Ukraine's energy sector. This is why you tune into me. This is why the peasant's perspective is so unique. This is water cooler talk for the blue collar worker standing around a temporary power pole getting ready to put scaffolding up, okay? This is why you tune into me, because I'm going to track this stuff for you over a long enough period of time. Go all the way back to the Burisma and Biden scandal. Here's where that started. Burisma had natural gas contracts. They had a lease, or they had a permit from the Ukrainian government to basically control the natural gas. And part of that was they paid a royalty to the government for that natural gas. The person who issued the permit was also involved with Burisma. So you've got a little bit of corruption there, because the company that's going to own the resource is also issuing the permit for the resource, because people were sitting in two chairs. Already enough of a red flag. On top of that, the money for Burisma and all the natural gas from Ukraine was going into a bank called Privat Bank. Privat Bank was just a private bank, like, a Wells Fargo or whatever, okay? It was just a private bank. Joe Biden got on the phone with Poroshenko, the then president of Ukraine, and they schemed together, and they traveled and did all this. These are all recorded calls. Glenn Beck did episodes on it. I covered it 4 years ago. We've touched on it many times. Bongino picked it up about 2 years late after they finally decided, hey, these recordings are legitimate between the President Biden and Poroshenko. And in that, you have Biden telling Poroshenko, when Donald Trump gets elected, he's going to be poking around Ukraine. We don't want him to do that. We want to hurry up and nationalize Privat Bank. So they took a private bank where they were funneling all these ill-gotten funds from a permit that they should have never been issued for natural gas through Privat Bank. And Poroshenko, the president of Ukraine, was going to nationalize Privat Bank, thereby taking away the private shareholders, which also means it wouldn't be publicly audited because it would be the country's bank. He was going to nationalize the bank, and that way, when they put the money in there, they could grift it off and pay it to whoever they wanted to pay. This is how they were able to pay bribes. This is how they were able to take that extra money. It's just utter corruption from start to finish, dealing with the banking sector, right? Dealing with banking. That's what Joe Biden was involved in. A president later, we have Zelensky, who clearly just stepped right into the position that his predecessor was in. And that's why it's about energy, the Burisma, and there's another energy company as well, putting the money into this newly nationalized bank and stealing it blind. Anti-corruption, that was Joe Biden's tagline. This is anti-corruption. We're going to take it out of the public where it can be audited. We're going to put it in the private where we can keep an eye on it. But you guys can't. Yeah, that's a real recipe to end corruption.
By Russian bombing. So that investigation is underway. So this latest development is that officials are now saying that those anti-corruption authorities are conducting searches of President Zelensky's chief of staff.
Yeah, it centers around that energy company, Energoatom. And the main focus of this is one of President Zelensky's key allies, a man called Timur Mindich, who is accused of being involved in this scandal. He has fled Ukraine. He fled a couple of weeks ago. The authorities there want to speak to him, of course. But as we see from this latest line of reporting,
his chief of staff fleeing the country is the equivalent of Susie Wiles taking off for Panama or Ireland, a country without extradition. Okay? It's like, oh, the chief of staff took off? There's zero chance the chief of staff was corrupt and taking money and et cetera, and Zelensky wasn't. Zero chance. Now, in politics, if you throw the chief of staff under the bus, then sometimes the president can be like, oh, I can put all my problems on him. They might try to do that, but it sounds like, especially America on our side, we're like, we smell a problem here, Zelensky. Do you know Zelensky's the 9th largest private landowner in the United States of America? I failed to cover this when it happened. Zelensky just bought some big ranch in Wyoming, which is the largest single property holder in the state of Wyoming, 70,000 acres of ranch land spread throughout the state and stuff like that. He's now the 9th largest private single landowner in the United States. This guy was a comedian. He dressed up in BDSM bondage gear, took his ding dong out, and pretended to play a piano on live TV as a comedic routine. This guy's a comedian. He's a Jewish comedian in Ukraine. He's a puppet. And somehow he gets enough money to buy the largest ranch in America and become the 9th largest property owner in America like that? Where do you think he got that money? Where do you think he got that money? That man right there is a crook. He's Bernie Madoff on steroids. He took our tax dollars. He stole it from future generations. They printed it. They gave it to him. And he turned around and took it and put it in his pockets, and he bought land in Florida, Wyoming, and probably all over the world. That man is a crook, and every piece of property he or anyone associated with him or touched that money that bought should be repossessed and sold at auction to an American citizen. That's what should happen. It's shameful that we allowed that to go on.
These searches now right at the heart of the Kiev administration in Zelensky's office. This has now come very, very close to the president. We'll get more details, of course, on this throughout the day here on Sky News.
Unfreaking believable. So at least, they're looking at it and they're doing some investigation. Zelensky himself is the reason we don't have peace in Russia. It's that simple. Zelensky himself is the reason we don't have peace in Russia. Okay, we're going to jump over and we're going to talk about Venezuela for just a moment. So things are heating up in Venezuela. Trump is getting closer and closer to making some type of decision to officially invade, to make airstrikes or something like that. Up till now, all the United States activity has been on the water, at least all the publicly known activity. The CIA was authorized to do covert action in Venezuela earlier this year. So I imagine there's a lot of ground prepping happening on the ground. Again, what we're doing in Venezuela, other nations have been doing to us here in the United States. It's the same game plan. It's the same game plan, okay? So we're fomenting a revolution in Venezuela to get Maduro out. Now, on our end, we hate war, but again, this is one of those ones, they tried to topple a democratic country with a Republican form of government. It's over. Like, you can't exist. We can't coexist. We have to destroy your capacity to ever do that again. And when you're talking about the leader of a sovereign nation like Venezuela, who's a cartel boss, all bets are off. So the impetus to the public has been stop drug use, stop drug use, stop drug use. This is kind of across the lines universal. For those 80, 90% of Americans that don't use drugs, we don't sympathize with drug dealers, whether you're on the left or the right. It's pretty universal. You can lock a drug dealer up. Okay. So Trump has used that as the reason why we've been hitting these boats coming north. And they legitimately are taking drugs. Like, this is absolutely what they're doing. But now Trump's getting ready to hit them on the land. Stop sending poison. Stop sending drugs, and stop sending your ideological poison as well. They both go together. Okay, guys, it has come to that point in the show. We've gone for an hour and 42 minutes, which is awesome. We got all our ads in, which is great. Maybe, I think, if Sayer sings as a new chatter, we might have hit our chat goal, which is awesome. This is your last chance. Those of you that are listening on X, please, I encourage you to come over and join us on Rumble. Hopefully you have Rumble Premium, because I'm about to go into private chat, and we're going to be talking to the unoffendables in Rumble. We're going to be talking a little bit more about John Brennan. We're going to be talking about Islam, and we're going to be talking about, let me just make sure I got my other topics here so I know exactly what we're going to talk about. We're also going to be talking about Sean Duffy, and where $2 trillion went missing out of the Department of Transportation under Pete Buttigieg. And we're going to talk a little bit about that and what Sean Duffy's trying to do about that missing money, and also what he's trying to do to revitalize America's shipbuilding industry. Did you know China produced 1,000 ships last year, and the United States of America produced 1? Pretty stunning. All right, guys, please join us over on Rumble Premium in the private chat just in a moment. But thank you so much for all of the people who joined us on X today. I believe it was probably the largest audience we ever had on X. So thank you very much. Next week, I'll be back in studio, and it'll be a great background. It won't be just me sitting in a hotel room. All right. We'll talk to you guys in the public again Monday. possibly even tomorrow. We'll see if I get all my streaming hours in today. And those of you on Rumble sticking around, we'll talk to you in just a moment. In that moment,